While everyone vied for his attention, the millionaire disovered the incredible story of a black artist struggling to rise above. Andrew Sinclair leaned back in his leather chair, an ocean of faces swirling beneath him as laughter echoed throughout the penthouse. He raised his glass, joining the chatter, but the clink of crystal felt foreign on his fingertips. A lavish skyline sprawled beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, but behind the glittering facade lay a gnawing emptiness that no amount of wealth could fill. The party continued, its vibrant energy clashing with the monochrome gray of his thoughts. Wealth equated to worth had been drilled into him since childhood, yet he questioned it all. Did the world know him as a man or merely a brand? Each laughter rang hollow, amplifying the doubts that haunted him. Was success merely a gilded cage? As the evening wore on, Andrew found his gaze drifting towards the exit. The world outside beckoned with a voice he struggled to ignore. That was when he stumbled upon the Community Arts Center, a stark contrast to his world of extravagant parties and glitzy power plays. The moment he stepped inside, he was immersed in a chaotic harmony of colors and passionate volunteers. The bustling atmosphere surged with a sense of purpose, art forged from survival, struggle, and hope. How could something so genuine exist alongside the facades he had built? His eyes landed on Marcus, a black artist whose sculptures seemed to breathe with life. They told stories, hard truths about heritage and resilience that struck chords Andrew had long buried. He approached Marcus, heart racing, but was met with skepticism. The artist's expression spoke volumes. He had witnessed countless men like Andrew, the powerful benefactors, come and go, offering hollow promises wrapped in pity. Yet something flickered between them as they exchanged stories, their shared yearning for authenticity. "Why are you really here?" Marcus challenged, cutting through Andrew's bravado. And just like that, Andrew's internal conflict intensified. The weight of his father's expectations crushed down upon him, the familiar narrative of power tangled with worth. He had social stature, yet felt no sense of belonging or purpose. Was this the life he was meant to lead, a mere shadow of his lineage? As they continued their conversation, Andrew felt the stirrings of a revolution within himself. How could he marry the privilege he possessed with the voice of an artist like Marcus? Would this be another failed attempt at righting wrongs just to soothe his conscience? His internal dialogue grew frantic. Who was he to share in the triumphs of a man whose journey he could never truly understand? The thought pricked at him, leaving him gasping for clarity. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Marcus's art beckoned for a chance at recognition, an opportunity to break free from financial constraints. This struck a nerve in Andrew. His heart beat louder at the prospect of involvement, yet so did his inhibitions. The call came suddenly. A prominent gallery was interested in showcasing Marcus's work, but they wanted Andrew's sponsorship, with negotiations promising strings attached. Andrew's body tensed, a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts raging in his mind. This was his moment, yet it clouded with deception. What would that sponsorship mean for Marcus? As his fingers trembled against the phone, the critical moment crystallized. Would he use his influence to uplift Marcus's voice, or would he retreat into the safety of his self-made cocoon? The room flickered with the weight of impending choices, emotions colliding like racing trains. He stared into the chaotic art all around him, and in that moment of uncertainty, he confronted his anguish. Was he destined for continued conflict? The looming question haunted him. Would he act or let another moment of truth slip away, lost in the chasms of privilege and fear? Artist searching for a voice. Andrew inhaled deeply, the air thick with the scent of paint and nervous energy. He was standing at the threshold of a decision that could irrevocably change the course of his life. His heart raced as he thought about the implications of his potential sponsorship, what it meant for him, what it would mean for Marcus. If he agreed, would he finally start to dissolve that hollow facade he wore? Or was he merely sinking deeper into a game he couldn't truly grasp? He glanced back at Marcus, who was engaged in conversation with an enthusiastic group of young artists. Each passionate word seemed to resonate, echoing the hopes of those who found solace in creation. Andrew felt an unfamiliar pang of admiration mixed with shame. He was standing on the periphery of something profoundly beautiful, yet had often settled for glossy facades. The tension in his gut tightened, throwing him into a whirlpool of conflicting desires. As the evening's conversations played out around him, Andrew navigated through layers of uncertainty. He'd been raised to view the world through a lens of achievement. But here he was, facing the truth that power could be leveraged for something greater than his own gain. The question reverberated within him. Was he prepared to face the harsh light of accountability, a realm where he would not just be the benefactor, but a collaborator in both the struggles and victories of another? In a moment of clarity, he caught Marcus's eye, and the artist paused mid-sentence. The skepticism had not fully left Marcus's features, yet there was an openness now, a flicker of hope that they could forge a bridge between their worlds. "Are you just another businessman looking for a trophy?" Marcus's voice cut through the crowd, his tone steadier than before. "Or do you actually care about making a difference?" Andrew's breath caught in his throat. The rawness of Marcus's inquiry struck deep. Every instinct told him to retreat, to cling to the comforts of his wealth, but another voice surged within him, one that whispered of freedom, authenticity, and a possibility to redefine his identity. "I'm here to offer real support," Andrew finally replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "But I need to know what that looks like for you. I don't want to exploit your art or your story." Marcus studied him intently. "Then learn. It's not just about the money. It's about understanding the narratives behind what I create. Show me that you're in this to amplify our voices, not just serve your ego." With every word, the walls around Andrew's heart began to crack. This was territory uncharted, where realizations bubbled to the surface, forcing him to confront the comfortable lies he'd accepted. Marcus's challenge propelled him toward a desire to act differently, to not only pass through life as a spectator, but to become an active participant in carving out space for voices often silenced. Still, the impending gallery sponsorship loomed over him, a tempting but treacherous lure into a world where he could either uphold his family's legacy or forge a new path. As the crowd continued to pulse around them, Andrew made a decision. "Let's work together," he said, surprising even himself with the resolve in his voice. "You teach me what matters to you, how we can elevate your art without trampling the essence of your journey." Marcus's expression softened, just a fraction, but it was enough to ignite a sense of urgency within Andrew. Could he possibly bridge the chasm of privilege and pain inherent in their backgrounds? The depths of his privileged life held shadowy corners that he had long ignored, but for the first time, the prospect of facing them felt less daunting. As they talked about potential projects and what true collaboration could mean, Andrew felt the spark of something he had never truly known, a pulse of passion towards a purpose beyond himself. There was still a long road ahead, filled with questions of authenticity, accountability, and the weight of expectation, but it was a journey he was now willing to undertake wholeheartedly. With this new focus, Andrew felt a makeshift courage building inside him, but it came with an undeniable tension. The reality of their collaboration weighed heavily on his mind. Could he really create something meaningful, or was this simply the beginning of yet another empty promise? That night, as the vibrant energy faded and the skyline darkened, Andrew knew one truth. The time had come to face his own reflections, to strip away the artifice and step into an unknown future where the stakes were higher than merely personal gain. But would he find the strength to sustain this newfound resolve, or would the shadows of his past pull him back into the depths of his old existence? Andrew awoke the next morning, the weight of his decision pressing heavily on his chest. The intersection of ambition and ethics collided in his mind, sparking a fire of realization. The collaboration with Marcus was not solely about art. It was a reckoning. For too long, he had lived vacantly, driven by external validation, rather than intrinsic values. After a hurried breakfast, Andrew sat at his kitchen table, a stark contrast to the chaos of the gallery from the night before. He needed clarity. He pulled out a blank notepad and began jotting down phrases like authentic collaboration and amplifying voices. Each phrase was a reminder of his commitment to Marcus and to himself. But the questions persisted. How could he support someone like Marcus, whose art was not just a means of expression, but a vessel for stories that transcended his own world? Determined to grasp the gravity of this new path, Andrew set aside his usual routines. Instead of the gym or a business meeting, he chose to immerse himself in the stories surrounding Marcus's work. Hours turned into days filled with research. Documentaries on artists of marginalized communities fascinated him, shedding light on their struggles and resilience. Every video, every article unveiled layers he had ignored, forcing him to confront the uncomfortable truth. Privilege often breeds ignorance. His phone buzzed one afternoon, pulling him out of his introspection. It was Marcus, inviting him to an informal gathering of artists. "It can't be all formal," the text read. "Let's sketch, let's vibe, and let's talk." Andrew hesitated. The idea of stepping into a room full of artists wielded an undercurrent of intimidation, yet he realized this wasn't about him. This was a step towards understanding, a necessary part of building trust. So he replied with a simple affirmation. As he arrived at the studio, the atmosphere buzzed with a mixture of eagerness and tension. Artists were scattered around, some chatting animatedly, others focused intently on their work. Marcus greeted him with a nod that seemed to convey relief. Andrew couldn't help but admire the ease with which Marcus navigated the social exchange, joy evident in every word, a spirit he doubted he possessed. Andrew joined a group gathered around a long table laden with art supplies, slightly uncomfortable, but determined to engage. He picked up a charcoal pencil and began to draw, half-heartedly at first, his strokes stiff as he felt the weight of his social inadequacies. Yet, as laughter erupted around him and the atmosphere grew infectious, a spark ignited within. He started conversing with a young painter named Tasha, whose canvases seemed drenched in vibrant hues. Her passion was infectious, shifting Andrew's perception. Here he was, not as a financier, but as an equal, partaking in an organic dialogue about art and identity. "What do you want from your art?" she asked, eyes shimmering with sincerity. The question hung in the air, weighty and profound. Andrew hesitated, extracting answers from the depths of his consciousness. "I want to nurture those stories," he confessed, "to help them be seen, to elevate something that carries weight beyond my own existence." Her expression softened, and Andrew felt a connection forming. In that moment he realized fostering authentic connections was more than a transaction. It was about vulnerability and honesty. At that gathering, Andrew didn't just engage with Marcus. He interacted with a community of creators, each with their own profound narrative. The realization settled heavily. He had to dig deeper, to strip away the layers of superficiality that had long clung to him. In this vulnerable space, he felt his resolve solidify. But questions remained. How could he elevate their voices responsibly? Could he convince his sponsors of the worth of this collaboration without compromising its authenticity? The uncertainty clung to him like the remnants of charcoal dust on his fingers. The potential for conflict loomed, forcing Andrew to confront raw truths. The disparity between his world and theirs was becoming palpable, but he no longer wished to shy away from it. As the gathering wound down with laughter and camaraderie, Andrew stepped outside, the cool evening air sharpening his thoughts. The journey he had embarked upon was beginning to feel perilously real, and he knew he could no longer hide behind his privilege. He turned to walk back into the warmth of the gathering, but an echo of doubt murmured in his ear. Could he truly bridge the chasm between his life and the artists he sought to support? Or was he simply stepping further into a role he was ill-prepared to fulfill? In that moment of reflection, Andrew resolved to face those shadows. The forthcoming conflict was inevitable. The next step in this unfolding narrative was not merely about personal revelations, but enduring the looming challenge of authenticity, both in art and in self. Understanding that the path toward integrity would demand more from him than he had ever anticipated. Andrew spent the next few days ruminating over his discoveries, playing them in his mind like a well-loved record. The warmth of camaraderie at the gathering lingered, but it was accompanied by an acute awareness of his own privilege and the potential pitfalls that awaited him. He was determined to turn that awareness into something constructive. With newfound urgency, Andrew initiated conversations with his connections in the art world. He meticulously crafted a proposal for an exhibition featuring Marcus and several other artists from marginalized backgrounds. The proposal wasn't about mere commercial gains. It was about showcasing the stories that resonated within their art, an emotional tapestry woven through lived experiences. Yet, the hesitation still nagged at him. As he drafted the proposal's outline, he could not shake the shadow of doubt. Was he merely a gatekeeper trying to capitalize on narratives that were not his own? To ensure authenticity, he knew he needed to involve Marcus and the other artists closely. It was time for him to switch roles from financier to collaborator. The moment he picked up the phone to call Marcus, a sense of purpose morphed into a palpable fear. He hesitated, questioning whether he was truly ready to lay bare his intentions and open himself to scrutiny. What if they rejected his idea? What if they felt he was exploiting their voices for fame or profit? Deep down, Andrew sensed that this was critical, a personal trial to redefine not only his professional ambitions, but also his understanding of art. "Marcus?" Andrew began after several rings. His heart raced as the call connected. "I've been thinking a lot about how we can elevate your work and the amazing stories behind it. I have some ideas about an exhibition." "Sounds intriguing. What do you envision?" Marcus responded, his tone earnest but curious. Andrew shared the outline he had painstakingly crafted, ensuring he placed emphasis on the importance of narrative authenticity and collaborative creation. As he spoke, he felt a shift in himself. Each word reflected a growing conviction. His earlier discomfort began to morph into excitement, yet he understood this was just the beginning. The silence on the other end felt heavy. After a long pause, Marcus spoke. "I appreciate your enthusiasm, really, but understand, it's more than just putting works on a wall. It's the stories we're telling, the culture we're sharing. Are you prepared for what that means?" Andrew felt exposed, wrestling with the weight of Marcus's question. "I want to be," he replied slowly. "I want to really understand. I can't just stand here with a checkbook expecting to create impact. I know I need to engage more deeply." "Then let's do this right. You need to be in the trenches, uncovering our stories, finding the soul behind the paintings," Marcus encouraged. Andrew felt a rush of determination surge within him. He recognized that accepting this challenge went beyond any commercial ambition. It was a commitment to honesty, understanding, and, above all, respect for the lives being portrayed. Buoyed by the conversation, Andrew ventured to visit Marcus's studio again. He prepared himself for what lay ahead, not merely as a financier but as a participant. Arriving at the studio, he joined the artists in their creative space, but this time he carried a notebook filled with questions and ideas on how best to articulate their shared visions. "Can you walk me through this piece?" he asked a sculptor working with reclaimed materials, eager to immerse himself in the stories that shaped their work. The artist looked up, surprised yet intrigued, and began narrating what inspired the sculpture. With each passing moment, Andrew felt a part of something larger, shedding layers of his previous self. The more stories he absorbed, the clearer his mission became. Each tale amplified resonances of struggle and resilience, challenging him to confront the privilege he had taken for granted. However, despite the zeal fueling him, nagging thoughts flickered at the edges of his mind. The exhibition would attract attention, but could he ensure that it remained a platform for their voices, or would it morph into a spectacle of his own making? The stakes continued to rise, and he realized conversations with Marcus and other artists would only deepen in complexity. As the evening drew to a close at the studio, Andrew felt a sense of clarity yet again. He understood now that authenticity required an ongoing dialogue, unrelenting introspection, and absolute commitment to integrity. Yet an unsettling feeling prickled at his conscience. What if his journey towards authentic collaboration ignited backlash from those who believed he was overstepping boundaries? The realization that both support and critique could arise was as exhilarating as it was terrifying. As he stepped back into the night, he inhaled the heavy air thick with anticipation and uncertainty. The landscape of this new journey glimmered with promise, but it was riddled with potential conflicts that could derail his intentions. In that moment of reckoning, Andrew resolved to embrace each step ahead fully. But a lingering thought haunted him. How would he navigate the inevitable storms that seemed poised to challenge his commitment to authenticity? The crossroads of ambition and ethics loomed larger than ever. The days that followed Andrew's visit to the studio blurred together in a whirlwind of new experiences and deep introspection. Each moment spent among the artists added texture to his understanding of their lives and struggles. Yet the weight of his responsibilities combined with unyielding doubts clung to him like an unwelcome shroud. He met them weekly, immersed himself in conversations that danced between humor and hardship, passion and pain, gaining insights that were both humbling and daunting. Staring at the notebook filled with their stories, each page bore witness to the complexity he had underappreciated. Marcus's stories about the neighborhood art scene opened Andrew's eyes not only to the realities of cultural expression, but also to the harsh truths surrounding access, privilege, and the inherent power dynamics at play in the art world. It stung more than he anticipated that he had been so oblivious for so long. Despite his growing connection to the artist, Andrew grappled with a saddening realization. He was still an outsider in their world. Each story he heard echoed a truth, an echo of narratives he could never completely grasp. He feared that any attempt to promote their work under his name would inevitably filter through his lens, diluting the authenticity in pursuit of presentation. Was he truly contributing to a narrative or merely reshaping it to fit a preconceived notion of success? His determination to prevail over these fears led him deeper into the collaborative process. The next meeting with Marcus felt urgent. Conversations needed to shift towards concrete action. As Andrew took a seat in a bustling cafe, he focused on the warmth of coffee filling the room, hoping it would douse the cold anxiety brewing within him. "Marcus," he began, leaning forward, "I've been thinking seriously about how we can structure this exhibition to ensure it remains a genuine reflection of your experiences and those of the other artists. It's vital that your stories guide the presentation." Marcus watched him with an intensity that made Andrew almost uncomfortable. "Guidance is one thing, Andrew, but do you really understand what's at stake? Who gets to tell our stories has historically been as important as the stories themselves." The weight of those words hit Andrew with conflicting force. They ignited a spark within him, but also reminded him of the boundaries he risked overstepping. "I want to help," he said, determination weaving through each word. "Let's find a way to include everyone meaningfully. We can hold community discussions leading up to the exhibition, bringing everyone's voices into the fold." Marcus nodded thoughtfully, a slight smile tugging at his lips. "That's a step in the right direction. It's a big commitment. Are you prepared to face potential backlash? This won't be just about showing art. It'll be about confronting uncomfortable truths." Andrew felt a swell of resolve. Perhaps it was this discomfort, the risk of expressing truth, that marked the line between patronage and partnership. He had assumed he could thrive in an art world painted in strokes of privilege and status. Could he now uncover the grit beneath? What he had started as a quest for engagement was transforming into a deeper commitment to social responsibility. Yet doubts persisted like shadows in the back of his mind. Questions about potential fallout loomed larger than ever. He considered the criticism he might face from both the artists and the broader community. Would they see his intentions as genuine, or would they perceive him as a mere conduit for their exploitation? Andrew knew he needed to continue this dialogue with Marcus and the other artists. With every conversation, he wanted to peel back layers of misunderstanding that had shaped his prior approach to art and partnership. He wished to leave behind the comfort of his previous self, stepping into a role that demanded genuine vulnerability and respect. As they wrapped up the meeting, Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Are you ready for the unease that will come with revealing these stories? They're powerful, Andrew, and they deserve to be treated with the utmost care." His words left Andrew questioning not just his readiness, but also his capacity to uphold those truths. It was more than just a collaborative exhibition. It was a call to action, a chance to confront and reshape stories embedded with pain and hope. Stepping outside into the crisp air, Andrew made a promise to himself. He would embrace this process fully, even if it meant facing the unwelcoming winds of skepticism. Yet another thought surfaced, prickling at the edges of his resolve. How would he engage with those whose experiences challenged him most fundamentally? The heart of this journey awaited him. How would he transform his privilege into a tool for meaningful change instead of exploitation? The stakes could hardly be higher, and the path lay unwritten. The moment of truth was approaching, and he felt both exhilarated and terrified. Andrew lay awake that night, the questions swirling in his mind like leaves caught in a storm. He could hardly find rest. Each heartbeat echoed the guilt of his privilege mixed with a surge of determination. The notes he had taken during his meetings felt like anchors, tethering him to the urgency of the artists' lives. What more could he do? The thought haunted him. His role was evolving, and yet he felt the weight of expectation bearing down on him. This wasn't just about organizing an exhibition. It was about amplifying voices that had long been stifled by the art establishment he belonged to. As dawn broke, Andrew decided to take action. He woke early, fueled by adrenaline and purpose. He reached for his phone and called Marcus, excitement bubbling beneath his surface. "Can we meet today?" Andrew asked, itching to bounce ideas off Marcus. "I think we need to strategize." "Sure," Marcus replied, a note of caution moving through his voice. "But remember, the burden of these stories is significant. Let's not rush." Andrew nodded, even though Marcus couldn't see him. He understood the need for methodical planning, but something deep within pushed him to move faster. He wanted to create a framework, one that could honor the artist's truths while firmly establishing his commitment to their stories. After their soulful meeting in a low-lit cafe, ideas flowed between them like a delicate dance. Marcus embraced the concept of community discussions, but added another layer, inviting outsiders who had shaped the local art narrative. The realization hit Andrew. This could raise the stakes, but it also offered a chance for catharsis, a chance to confront the history he was part of. Andrew took a deep breath, feeling the weight of it all. He pushed the fear down, convinced that honesty would prevail. This event would matter. It would unearth buried truths that could resonate beyond the walls of the gallery. In the weeks that followed, Andrew began drafting a proposal for the series of discussions. Each passing day, he noticed his anticipation building, yet so too did the sense of impending conflict. Every time he put pen to paper, a small voice whispered doubts in his ear. What if his efforts were misguided? What if he misrepresented the very artists he aimed to uplift? As the discussions were set in motion, a flicker of resistance arose. The feedback from some community members was less than encouraging. A local artist, Sarah, posted an online critique questioning Andrew's motives, positing that his privilege overshadowed his ability to facilitate authentic dialogue. Her words cut deep, and Andrew felt that familiar cold grasp of panic seize him. They echoed Marcus's earlier warnings and resonated in every corner of his mind. He felt exposed, as though his vulnerability laid bare for the very artists he sought to support. In a moment of impulse, he composed a response, but as he hovered over the send button, doubt clamped down on him. A wave of vulnerability washed over him, forcing him to reconsider, not about defending himself, but about how to confront the issue head-on. He decided against the impulsive retort and instead reached out directly to Sarah. "Can we meet and talk?" he typed. "I think it's important we communicate directly about this." Sending the message felt like a leap into the unknown, propelling him further into the very discomfort he had promised to embrace. He braced himself for a possible confrontation, but also a chance for understanding. Yet a sense of urgency gnawed at him. How could he navigate this precarious path, threading the needle between intention and execution? What if others felt similarly? The weight of his next steps loomed larger, and with each day that passed, Andrew felt the walls of his previous self close in. The stakes were growing, shifting into a battle, not just for the artist's voices, but for his own integrity. As the sun set on another tumultuous day, Andrew stood before a blank canvas in his studio, finally confronting the most pressing question. Could he face the uncomfortable truth that lay ahead? not only for the sake of his career, but for the lives of those whose stories he aimed to tell. Tomorrow, the confrontation might arise, but in that moment, all Andrew could do was prepare for the fight, waiting at the intersection of privilege and purpose. Andrew paced his studio, adrenaline coursing through him as he grappled with the forthcoming meeting. The blank canvas before him seemed to mock his uncertainty. Should he approach the conversation with Sarah as a fellow artist, a collaborator, or merely a privileged facilitator aiming to navigate the complexities of their shared world? Each identity felt inadequate against the rawness of her critique. His fingers brushed the bristles of a paintbrush laid aside. He realized it wasn't the colors he would apply that mattered. It was the brushstroke of honesty he needed to convey. He picked it up, hesitated, then dropped it again. The artistic expression that normally fueled him was now stymied by the gravity of his actions. The coffee shop where he and Sarah decided to meet was alive with the sounds of conversation, laughter, and the clattering of dishes, a stark contrast to the spiraling anxiety inside him. The proximity to so many voices felt like a cacophony drowning out his own. Andrew's heart raced as he spotted Sarah seated at a small table in the corner. She was immersed in her own thoughts, the determined set of her jaw signaling her focus, perhaps even her trepidation. "Hi, Sarah," Andrew offered, his voice surprisingly steady given his inner turmoil. He slid into the chair opposite her, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than a reflection of his intention. "Andrew." Her tone was cool, assessing, as if she were a critic grading his every move. The small talk evaporated quickly, falling prey to the weighty matter at hand. "I wanted to reach out because your feedback resonated with me," he began, each word carefully chosen. "I'm here to understand your perspective better." She locked eyes with him, skepticism spilling from her expression. "Understanding is only half the battle, Andrew. I'm not sure you realize that you speak from a position of privilege. Your motives may be well-intended, but can you honestly convey the artist's truths without overshadowing their voices?" Andrew felt a lump in his throat. "I don't want to overshadow anyone," he replied, heat rising in his cheeks. "That's why I'm here. I don't want this to just be a platform that celebrates art, but—" "Then why is it your platform?" she interrupted, her voice sharp yet tinged with concern. "Are you prepared for the demands of that responsibility?" He flinched. There was no denying the truth in her question. "Honestly, I don't know," he confessed, his heart racing. "I'm trying my best, but what if my best isn't enough?" Silence enveloped them for a moment, and Andrew could feel the weight of her gaze piercing through his defenses. She wasn't merely questioning his intentions. She was challenging him to face something deeper, a confrontation with his identity within the art world and the ethical landscape in which he operated. "Perhaps you don't need to have all the answers," Sarah suggested, her voice quieting as the tension shifted, "but acknowledging that is a start." Andrew felt a flicker of hope igniting within him. Perhaps the best path forward wasn't about proving his dedication, but accepting the complexity of the situation. "How can I do that?" A slight smile emerged on Sarah's face, softening her features. "Start by sharing the space. Respect the stories, even the difficult ones. Listen, really listen." As their conversation continued, Andrew felt a transformation brewing within him. What he initially viewed as confrontation now felt like an opportunity for growth. His professional ambition was no longer the only focus. The artistry of genuine connection began to weave its way through his purpose. Yet as the conversation drew to a close, a call to action pulsed within him. He was ready to embrace the authenticity that awaited him. But there remained a vital question. How far was he willing to go to dismantle his privilege and reshape the narrative he so desperately wanted to define? Leaving the coffee shop, Andrew's heart pounded with renewed vigor. The journey ahead felt daunting, but one truth resonated. The moment had arrived to face his own shortcomings and take genuine steps into the uncertainty that defined his path forward. As he walked down the bustling street, the rhythm of the city echoed the beats of his heart, a reminder that each step was an invitation into dialogue. The path that lay ahead promised growth, but it also loomed large with possible conflict. Standing at the edge of this new chapter, Andrew felt the air crackling with tension. He had embraced the beginning of his challenge, but now, he faced the daunting prospects of what was yet to unfold. Tomorrow, he would confront the truths buried within himself. But for now, whispers of doubt still lingered. Notions of courage and vulnerability were colliding, and the stakes could not be higher. What stories lay dormant in the shadows, waiting to break free, and would he be ready to bear witness? Andrew awoke the next morning with the weight of his conversation with Sarah still heavy on his mind. His typical routine felt foreign as he moved through the motions of showering, dressing, and grabbing a quick coffee. Each step was marked by an internal battle. A critical dialogue shifted for and against him. The urgency to reassess his position was palpable. Today was not merely a day for art, but a day for introspection and discovery. As he entered his studio, the once inviting space now felt confining. The canvases that lined the walls, filled with vibrant colors and abstract forms, awaited his attention but felt irrelevant. Distraction beckoned with the seduction of familiar creative endeavors, but Andrew stood resolute. He understood that to harness the full power of his artistic platform, he needed to account for his inherent biases and privileges. He retrieved a blank canvas, but hesitated. In that moment of stillness, he silently resolved to confront the truths hidden within himself, before attempting to express them. He grabbed a notepad from the cluttered desk, ready to jot down thoughts, notions, and challenges that emerged from his soul. It was time to excavate those buried feelings, to examine their roots and confront their implications. Today, he would not paint, he would write. Andrew began scribbling down his thoughts. What did it mean to be a facilitator? What did it mean to share space? The question loomed larger than any brushstroke he could apply. He recalled Sarah's insistence on listening, really listening, and a pang of guilt twisted in his gut. He realized he had often been quick to speak rather than to hear the stories begging to be told. Each scribbled thought opened a floodgate of conscience. Hours passed as he pored over these reflections, lost in a meditative state, until he unearthed a startling realization. The stories he sought to amplify had long been silenced not only by the world around him, but also by his own lack of awareness. The narrative he envisioned could only thrive if approached with authenticity, which meant embracing discomfort. With renewed urgency, he set up a meeting with a small group of emerging artists from diverse backgrounds. These were not faceless talents to him. Rather, they represented the complexities he was beginning to understand. It felt imperative that he engage with them honestly, acknowledging his position while appreciating theirs. He crafted an email, extending an invitation for an informal gathering in his studio. Drawing from Sarah's advice, he specifically articulated his desire to listen and to learn, creating a safe space for dialogue. As he clicked send, a ripple of anxiety coursed through him. The fear of rejection stung, but a glimmer of hope pulsed through as well. He had initiated a step towards real connection. As the days unfolded into a week, Andrew found himself consumed by a new discipline. He began to read the works of artists from marginalized communities whose voices had been overlooked. Each page ignited a deeper understanding of those he aspired to support. Yet with each revelation came a feeling of impending urgency. He was preparing for something monumental that lay ahead, but lingering questions persisted. Was he truly prepared for the discomfort that would arise as he shared this space? What transformative stories awaited him, and how would his own vulnerabilities intertwine with theirs? The day arrived for the gathering. Andrew stood at the doorway of his studio, his breath caught in his throat. He had stepped into a new role, one that could redefine him if he allowed it. Behind him, vibrant canvases sat silent. Ahead, the possibility of genuine connection loomed large, thick with anticipation and tinged with uncertainty. Would he navigate this new journey with honor and integrity? As he opened the door to welcome the artists, Andrew felt the world shift. An undeniable shift that could unravel everything he thought he knew. The pulse of connection began to beat with a new rhythm, and as he stood on the threshold, a singular thought burned in his mind. How far was he willing to go to redefine every narrative he thought he understood? The moment Andrew stepped into the studio, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. The artists trickled in, each carrying their own stories, their unique energies anchoring them to the ground as they entered a space designed for creation, yet shrouded in a new complexity. Nervousness twisted in Andrew's stomach, but he fought to maintain a calm exterior. He had prepared mentally for this moment. Still, the tangible reality of it forced him to confront the weight of responsibility he felt toward these emerging voices. He greeted each artist with a smile, glancing briefly at the canvases that loomed over them, remnants of what felt like a forgotten mission. This was different. This was not a day for artistic conceit or personal vibrance. It was a day intended for listening, for bearing witness to the struggles that shaped the perspectives before him. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice slightly shaking with earnestness. "I want this to be a safe space for us to dialogue openly, and I am here to learn." As they settled into a circle on the studio floor, Andrew's heart raced. The diversity of the group was striking, and he could feel the weight of their collective experiences pressing against his own. The initial awkwardness of their gathering was palpable, but he pushed himself to embrace it, knowing that no significant change could occur without discomfort. He recalled Sarah's words, locked in his mind. They had given him the courage to take this leap. The first to speak was Jasmine, an artist whose bright, expressive work contrasted sharply with her quiet demeanor. She shared her journey of struggles in the art world, a realm often dominated by privilege and access. As Andrew listened, he felt a surge of empathy form within him, a realization that privilege wasn't merely a concept, but a tangible barrier that stifled creativity and expression. Next, Ian shared a raw narrative of overcoming personal loss through his artwork. His intensity made Andrew lean in closer, captivated not only by Ian's story but by the emotional gravity that was infusing the room. Each artist took turns speaking, revealing layers of vulnerability that not only illustrated their artistry but also intertwined with their culture and identity. With every story shared, the grip of Andrew's insecurities began to loosen. He saw himself reflected in their experiences, caught in the throes of self-doubt alongside them. But amidst the resonance grew a painful awareness. How have I contributed to the silence? Andrew wondered. Here they were, a chorus of underrepresented voices that he had, until recently, overlooked. A dark thought lingered. His art had unwittingly perpetuated the very silence he sought to dismantle. The dichotomy gnawed at him, and he struggled to reconcile his position with the poignant realities laid before him. After hearing deeply personal accounts, the conversation shifted toward ways they could support one another. Andrew listened intently as they proposed potential collaborative projects, concepts that bridged their experiences with greater visibility. Ideas flowed freely, and for the first time in ages, Andrew felt a flicker of inspiration. It wouldn't be through his paintbrush alone, but rather through the collective power of their narratives. As they crafted an outline for a joint endeavor, safety and vulnerability morphed into purpose. Yet, a gnawing uncertainty loomed, reminding him that this was only the beginning. Did he truly have the capacity to support them? What would happen when they faced external scrutiny or systemic barriers? As the gathering drew to a close, a palpable sense of connection pervaded the atmosphere. Andrew felt a shift within himself. The anxiety that had gripped him earlier transformed into determination. They were not merely artists to be showcased. They were partners in a deeper story waiting to unfold. Looking around at the faces surrounding him, Andrew realized he stood at the precipice of an unknown journey. The real challenge lay ahead, navigating his involvement with authenticity while honoring the creativity that surged from these artists. The weight of his newfound resolve rested within him, a revelation awakening in his core. He asked himself, was he ready to face the backlash that could arise from this collaboration, willing to confront the uncomfortable truths that would emerge? As he watched the artists gather their belongings, a wave of clarity washed over him. The moment of truth was near, but could he elevate their voices without drowning in his own inadequacies? Tomorrow, the real work would begin, a journey he could neither foresee nor control. Yet, he could not shake the feeling that he was finally on the right path, even as the specter of his past loomed ever larger. The sun crept through the window, bathing Andrew in a warm glow as he awoke with a renewed sense of purpose. The vibrant conversations from the previous day's gathering echoed in his mind, and he realized he was no longer just a spectator in the art world. He had become a participant, an ally in the quest for authenticity. As he stared at the blank canvas in his studio, it no longer felt like a relic of his past ambitions, but a fresh opportunity to create, connect, and collaborate, this time with meaningful intent. Fueled by determination, he began outlining a strategic plan to execute the vision that had taken root in his mind. Not only would he continue engaging deeply with the artists, but he would also facilitate a series of community dialogues aimed at fostering transparency, understanding, and respect for the narratives that had long been marginalized. Andrew envisioned these dialogues as platforms for sharing not only individual stories, but also collective experiences that could resonate widely and challenge prevailing notions of privilege and power dynamics in the art world. With each passing day, Andrew's meetings with the artists became increasingly fruitful. They formulated ideas for an exhibition that would spotlight the rich tapestry of their experiences, unpacking the nuances and complexities intertwined in each piece. This was about more than simply selling art. It was about presenting their truths with unwavering sincerity and breaking down the barriers that silenced their voices. Andrew felt a terrifying thrill in harnessing this urgency, blending their stories into a presentation that celebrated authenticity and resilience. However, as the planning advanced, he confronted another layer of complexity, an upcoming local art fair that would attract both patrons and critical voices from the community. Andrew recognized that the exhibition could either succeed spectacularly or be met with fervent resistance. Self-doubt threatened to creep in, but this time he was ready. He leaned into the discomfort, acknowledging the weight of the responsibility he bore, not simply for himself, but for the lives and stories woven through the work that would be displayed. At a pivotal meeting ahead of the exhibition, Andrew made a conscious choice during discussions, a decision to prioritize the artist's perspectives above his own. As they debated options for highlighting certain pieces, he posed questions rooted in their truth rather than his preferences. What feels right for you? How can this reflect not only your artistry but the essence of your lived experiences? Each question served to deepen his understanding, forging stronger bonds built on trust. The day of the exhibition arrived, electrified with anticipation. As they set up, Andrew stood side by side with the artists, their previous hesitations largely dissolved through collaboration. Each painting, sculpture, and installation became a beacon of authenticity, echoing their shared commitment to truth. As the doors opened, an influx of guests began to filter in, the room pulsating with life. Andrew's heart raced, not from fear, but from the intoxicating prospect of unveiling unapologetic narratives that demanded to be seen and heard. Throughout the evening, patrons engaged with the pieces, capturing their essence, and appreciating what lay beneath the surfaces. Amidst the conversations, Andrew found himself drawn into discussions that unveiled layers of misconception about the narratives being shared. Some questions, though well-meaning, missed the mark, and he felt a responsibility to navigate these moments with grace. This was not just an exhibition, but a call to confront uncomfortable truths and redefine relationships. As the event unfolded, Andrew felt a transformation within himself. The weight of the burden he had once carried morphed into something lighter. This collaboration wasn't merely an attempt to gain recognition. Instead, it became a cornerstone for genuine connection and community healing, where listeners were invited to engage meaningfully with stories that might have otherwise been overlooked. As the final attendees trickled out, a profound warmth settled within him. The exhibition had been a resounding success, but more than that, it marked a new chapter for Andrew. He had positioned himself not as a benefactor, but as a partner, breaking the chains of privilege that had once confined him. With newfound confidence, he recognized that personal fulfillment came not from standing in the spotlight, but from uplifting others, amplifying their stories, and committing to continuous learning and dialogue. The disparity between who he had been and who he had become seemed vast, but Andrew understood that this evolution was an ongoing journey. Standing amidst the remnants of the exhibition, Andrew realized that his quest for authenticity was not a destination, but a path he must tread with care and humility. He had emerged from the shadows of his privilege, walking toward a future where connection and collaboration would redefine the landscape of art, all while cherishing the stories that had shaped him along the way. Tomorrow would present new challenges, but Andrew Sinclair no longer stood alone. Equipped with the strength of a diverse community and the wisdom born from vulnerability, he was ready to face whatever lay ahead. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It seriously makes a difference. Comment below your reactions and theories about this impactful conclusion. And remember, share instantly this story with at least 5 friends who need to see it. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.